Hello, everyone. I'm Tiffani Neilson, and with me today is Thad Leingang. How are you doing, Thad?
I am doing great here in Southern California and Costa Mesa, enjoying the good weather.
And Thad is the VP of Sales for Riot Wireless. Thad, can you tell us a little more about your background and expertise?
Certainly, certainly. I am a electrical engineering, computer science major out of Purdue University. Moved to Silicon Valley in the days of semiconductors, and I've been working on semiconductor-related flows and technologies and devices since the olden days. And I was working on products that now before IoT was dubbed IoT. But of recently I transitioned to telecommunications, gateways, and modems, and now I find myself at a sensor company called Riot Wireless, where we're producing sensors for industrial applications that are hard to manage, hard to service, industrial grades, intrinsic plastics, things like that. So that's where I'm landed now.
And Thad, can you tell us about some of the different applications for IoT that you're seeing within our food systems?
Certainly, I certainly can. Um, if you look at the IoT applications there's omnipresence. Well, first of all, it's been around for a long time. We've seen automation for quite some time, but really not really calling IoT. But the first mandate was monitoring food and temperature of the food chain, but inventory, smart refrigerators monitoring what's in your refrigerator. As you know, and you're going to see refrigerators that are going to identify what's in your refrigerator, so you can write grocery shopping lists. Well, that goes all the way back, all the way across down the food chain. Stock, inventory, data analysis, food regulations are going to get stricter, and all this is about giving the customer a rich source of data that they can make decisions on what they're eating, what they're buying, as well as the production cycle. How do we get foods out to the field? So these are various areas of IoT that are starting to make their inroads, largely due to the fact that the cost of these products are coming way down and the expense of the hard products is going up. So as those two things happen, IoT becomes the natural solution.
And Thad, considering that the food industry really starts at the farm, can you tell us what you're seeing for the connected farm?
Absolutely. The farming industry is going through a revolution right now, and what you're finding is that the father of the farm, or the patriarch who's managing and running the farm, they're still doing their old farming practices, but then the son comes back from agricultural school and they have an IT major. Why? Because there's so many devices entering into the farming environment, and it's starting with these multi-million dollars tractors that do drive-by-wire, um, geosynchronous tracking of planting. You'll be able to monitor through drones the amount of fertilizer being deployed across your field. You hit the water sensors, the flow management of your water distribution, especially in the areas of like California and Kansas these days. But it just, there's not a single part in the farming industry. It's not going to be touched with some sort of analysis and being able to bring that down and make some sort of sense out of all that data. Um, the prime example is that this was all in earnest of the farmer, but there's an interesting trend that I just want to bring up. There's companies like Page Wireless that are operating out of Nebraska. They started out, and the very simple idea is, how do you take a region and just started making it super connective? They're kind of doing this in Europe already. In France, they brag about being lit up with communications with LoRa. Netherlands, England, they all have this on plan, but that's all state run. Page is a private company that's going to be doing this for the whole central region of the United States, and has some great promise to really bring connectivity, taking the earnest off the individual farmer to actually become his own private network, which they don't want to do. The other example that I'm really excited about is my alma mater, Purdue, is trying to create what they call the most technologically advanced valley/farming environment in the world. And that, in conjunction with Purdue University, they could do research grants with the students in the electrical engineering department, the computer science department, all the different, and the agriculture department, to monitor all aspects of the 5-county region around Tippecanoe County and West Lafayette, Indiana, where Purdue is based. So That is really exciting operations, just showing how these networks are becoming more ubiquitous and less just private.
And what about livestock, Thad? How are they becoming
Oh,
more connected?
oh man, livestock. That's where it's starting because if you're going to try to tag something, you're not necessarily want to analyze your cherries or your at the beginning or your tomatoes. They're low cost items, right? That you have disposability, whatever. What is the most expensive asset on besides your tractor and your hardware? It's your livestock. So we're moving into automatic screenings with AI, identifying how many sheep and move from pasture to pasture, where their geolocation is potential to farm, whether or not they're feeding properly, what their health and storage by monitoring their body temperatures, their mood, their gait. You can tell if a cow has something wrong with her foot if she's walking through the field and limping. And AI and livestock management is huge coming in. You're going to see lots of different kind of layered imaging that's going to be moving into our cattle management pretty soon. Um, that brings me to one of my favorite applications. I even 20 years ago in the 2G world, where a farmer just took a standard Nokia telephone and placed it inside of a circular enclosure. These 2G phones back then, they would last for 2, 3 weeks on a single charge. They were crazy great. And they would put them in, and now they put them in a tube, and they would put them down the cow's uterus, and it would expand out so that when the cow would go into labor, the calf's head would push the device out, and the device would hit the ground, and then send a shock alert and page the cow that Bessie just went into labor. It's a brilliant use of what they call IoT before it was even called IoT. Now they're doing things like monitoring cattle's temperature by connecting something to their tail, to their earlobes. It's just infinite amount of that data is being extracted right now for cattle. It's changes every day.
And how about automation, Thad? What's happening there on the farm or
Oh,
on our
oh
food
my
industry?
goodness. Oh my goodness. When you look at a simple operation like Podeska Farms outside of Stockton, they went out and they bought themselves a multi-million-dollar German cherry processing line. Why? So they can bring the separation and the processing directly to the field. To run that thing, you need internet. It is connected to the cloud. They are doing dynamic analysis with cameras, doing cloud-based analysis of the fruit that comes down the line, the separation, whether or not the cherry's good, it's bad, how big it is. It's crazy. We have shortages of manpower. What's that going to cause? Automation. We're going to see robots moving into the farm fields. It's going to be pretty pervasive. I know they're working in the Netherlands on a truck, a little trailer that will go pick tomatoes properly. It's a really difficult problem to solve, but they're getting there. Drones. You can see every farmer is going to have a drone monitoring what's going on in their field, whether or not it's just to do cattle count, looking at the soil moistures. There's countless reasons why a farmer is going to need a drone, and from there, it's just going to go. It's going to just technology's moving directly in. It's just not farming anymore. It's IoT.
And what would IoT be without traceability? And
Oh,
traceability is growing in importance these days. But what are you seeing for trends revolving around traceability, Thad?
that is a great question because this is where IoT really starts to shine, and it's all because of something that we call blockchain. Back in the day, everything down the field you could trace from the field to the farmer to the producer. They would ship it, and you can monitor your strawberries as they go from Chicago to New York City, to the most part, to see if they got too hot. But when they got to the producer, it stopped there. Now through blockchain, we'll be able to identify on a package of hot dogs what farm they came from. We'll be able to trace down salmonella outbreaks that we see so often in romaine lettuce coming out of Arizona, California, the salad belt, as they call it. And we won't have to throw away every piece of romaine lettuce. It'll just be say, oh, here is the traceability blockchain for this batch of lettuce that came out of that field at that time. All the rest of you guys are fine. So traceability just impacts everything. And blockchain is to say that is our savior when it comes to this. And that's the new advancing feature, but it's ubiquitous in IoT. It's just there.
Great. Thank you so much, Thad. And looking at food waste and spoilage, it seems that they would benefit greatly from IoT. Can you tell us what you're seeing for different ways that can be used for food safety?
Absolutely. Food, you can't produce more food. You can do that by certain things like more fertilizer, better use of land, but that's a tough thing to do. But what you can do is you can cut down on what gets thrown away. Monitoring for your products as they come out of your processing, your producers, keeping them properly stored such that they are delivered to the consumer at the proper ripeness at the proper value. And how you do that is you monitor where they are in this process, the temperature they're stored at, which is cold chain. You should ask me more about that. And spectral analysis of the fruit itself, looking at the enzymes that are coming off the smells are coming off your produce, and other types of analysis. You're going to have cameras looking at meat for spoilage, and the spectral analysis that of every single product to be able to know exactly, are they ready for produce, for sale? Should I keep them in storage a little bit longer, or should I move them fast to get them out of here before they overspoil? So AI, machine learning, spectral analysis, everything's changing the way we do food transport here today.
And obviously, dairy is something that should be carefully monitored when it's being transported. But what else are you seeing for cold chain, Thad?
Oh my goodness, everything is happening on cold chain. This is probably the number one use. Why? It's because the FDA regulates it. They put a law in place that says, hey, we want to know what's happening in your freezer, right? We want to know, are you keeping the door open? So as a result, regulations are on every state, any restaurant, any food producer. If you have storage of food, you have to have proper records that show that your food and your products, end products or raw products, are stored at your appropriate temperature. And because of that, there are dozens of cold chain products on the market today, and there's going to be dozens more. But by far, this is the number one for use of IoT, as we want to call it today in the industry. Now, going forward, we see a big move in monitoring other large dairy slash fluid applications that they move through the chain. And just as this week, we are starting to have a discussion with a farmer in Oklahoma City that needs to monitor his milk as it comes out of the pasture on their farm to their facility, which is on their premises too, that produces the cheese. And we are going to now be looking at the what's in the tank as far as level, its temperature, its tilt, and give it a license plate so that he can identify where it is on the field, on the premises, as it goes through the production cycle. And anything in the dairy industry, cheese is king. That gives them the most return on investment. So now we can monitor this. Whereas before, they still use temperature probes, and to just like we used to do with oil and gas and dipsticks.
Wow, that's very informative, Thad. And since you are a veteran in the IoT and sensor industries, can you tell us maybe a piece of advice or a tip that you found out that maybe people are unaware of when it comes to IoT and sensors?
Oh boy, Tiffany, I'm just another Silicon Valley guy who thinks that I can have a good idea and just say, oh, everybody should use it. Well, not so fast. If you want to even participate in the food industry and you have a device, there are rules that you have to live by. Imagine that. So that is why there's a company that provides some sort of regulatory basis that says, hey, is your product up for handling for high acidic environments, high temperature, sensitive corrosion environments? That company is called 3A, 3A Sanitary Standards. And what they are, the governing body, nonprofit, but what they do is they come in and they make sure that when you're using certain types of sensors or equipment, whether or not to be stainless steel or certain kinds of non-permeable plastics, that they are held to a certain standard so that they don't give off any kind of hard functioning, hard cleaning surfaces like cracks or crevices. You got to make sure that if they're not made of stainless steel and made out of plastic, they don't emit any kind of microplastics that we're all keenly aware of now today. And the A3 standards group is a it's just they're this as a kind of a formal stamp to say, yeah, you've done your due diligence. But if you're going in IT, you can't just take some random piece of PVC, create a sensor, wrap it around it, and think you're going to run through this system. So it takes a little bit more forethought if you want to move into this space. It's going to continue to go down. Even if you're looking at in the field, having chemical products that basically live up to the high sunlight that won't disintegrate, that goes into the water, that goes into the cattle. It's a big problem of making sure that your product is safe in the beginning of the cycle and safe at the end of the food cycle. Anyway, that's what A3's standards of accountability is for.
Wow, that I had no idea. That's very good information. Thank you for sharing that with us and for joining me today. And we look forward to featuring you on a future webinar. Thank you so much, Thad.
What topic next time? But yes, absolutely, Tiffany. Always a pleasure. Can't wait to come see you in Vegas again when I come back, start to travel again as the trade shows go forward. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Thad. Have a great day.
Thanks for your time.